question. Yeah.
So I'm the spouse of a fintech CEO, and she's in the process of raising a $2.5 million round. And I see the daily stress that she goes through when it comes to pitching to investors and ultimately maybe not being the right fit. Can you speak a little bit to what the best way to support someone like that would be?
That is wonderful.
I would love that.
Well, actually, I have the privilege of having some family here. My sister-in-law, my two nieces, and my brother-in-law has a wonderful anecdote. And one of his, what he had found through research, his #1 success factor for entrepreneurs is a supportive spouse. Okay, that can mean, whether you're married or not, that can mean your roommate, your mom, whomever you're in close quarters with. If you live in an environment that doesn't support you, I have hardly seen entrepreneurs succeed with that. So #1, congratulations to you. What round is she in on the 2.5? That sounds like a Series A or B.
Series A.
Okay. Remember this, if anything that I say today, you only need one. You only need one believer. So what I would recommend, and a lot of entrepreneurs have met me this way, is going through networking, such as tonight, is you have one person to come in there, they go to a meeting after she has pitched, and they vouch for her and say, I have a great feeling about her, I think the product or service is phenomenal, I think we tweak it here and there, and I think it could be something, who is on board with me? And then suddenly it becomes a swarm intelligence backroom talk amongst investors, like, okay, I kicked down a favor for you, I helped you out with this one entrepreneur, so why don't you help me out? It really comes to that. If you really heard the behind the scenes talks, like I said, people write checks because we like you. So if your wife, which I'm sure she's like you, is a very nice person, she's coachable, I firmly believe in that, she's coachable. If she also is not afraid of no, if she also takes a no and turns it into a yes by mere conversations, you know when you speak to someone whether they're not into the conversation. So if she, all of a sudden sees an angel investor start checking their phone, that's not the right person for her. So once again, going back, it takes just one to believe, and we do champion, and we do also syndicate in Southern California. I'm no longer affiliated with an angel group. Of course, I owned Maverick with my late husband, and then I took it over myself. And then I became a Tech Coast Angels member. Who knows Tech Coast? Everyone in the world? You guys? Okay, good. And then I went off on my own and just became my own investor and an advisor. So it's all about how you present yourself, more so than your product. Everyone is so involved. #1 rule as well, when it comes to your product service, don't fall in love with it. Because if you're building this to sell it, you're going to let go of your baby eventually. So don't fall in love. And I know that's hard to say. Be passionate about it, but you're going to let go of it because somebody's going to acquire you and you're going to be handed a nice check. And then you're going to be a serial entrepreneur and do something again. That's what we look at too, is that her confidence level. And with women especially, and this is one of the reasons why I do speak, because it's for men as well. You have to be confident. If you don't have the confidence or you're waiting for someone to talk to you, you're going to let that train go by you every single time. She needs to get out there and just be a machine. Have business cards ready and talk to investors like we're people. And also mind your time with them, because I literally have had entrepreneurs chase me into the elevator before. And it's not what we want, because we hound it all the time. So you guys gotta be clever. It's like, okay, how can I enroll them? Let me ask them a question about them. Ask me a question about me. And then it's like, okay, you know what? It's not all about, oh my God, if I just had money, I could do X, okay? Do not use that word. Don't use that phrase. If I only had the money, I can do my company. That is done. Just get it out of your vocabulary. We think creatively. You can do a lot with creativity. It's not just, and that's how you get the money. You get the money from a relationship. I know that was a long-winded answer, but I want to get a lot of those in there because I must have seen thousands of pitches. I've read hundreds of business plans. And if I see that the person also, let's say your product is okay and you're phenomenal. I'll invest in you, possibly, of course, I have to do due diligence, because I believe that you have the temperament to take it all the way. I don't look at you now. I look at you 5 years from now as well. Because, and also I do this, and this is a secret, but I'm gonna tell you. I always, when I like an entrepreneur, I like to meet their team. And I sit there and I listen to the CEO speaking with their team. That tells me volumes about the leadership, the trust level, that they're not like a control freak. They actually assign tasks and trust that their employees are going to get them completed. You're not all things to all people. So please delegate and have open mind. The coachability, I can't tell you enough. If you say, okay, I'm going to do it this way only. A very quick story, and I've never forgotten this because I love this guy and he didn't listen. So he pitched at a Maverick Angels meeting a few years ago. At the time, green technology was really getting going, and he was actually constructing steel houses. Well, he had an amazing software program that he built around how to deliver upon building these in a matter of a very short construction time. We as investors said, oh my gosh, you know what? We love your software, and we could do without your steel houses. He didn't listen. He's like, no, I'm doing my steel houses. And you know the story, what happened. Everyone else felt the same way. He got pedigree comments and feedback and didn't listen, and he went out of business. And he was the nicest man, but he didn't listen. It's like, we know what we want to write a check for. And so therefore, when you have to, you got to give in a little. You can't be staunch. Staunch in your beliefs in yourself, always. When it comes to your baby, remember, I'm going to take your baby. I'm going to take your baby and hand you money. So, just a little anecdote from a really hard lesson that I learned by watching someone fail in a certain way.
That's awesome. I mean, it was such a profound lesson. One of the things as you're supporting somebody who's an entrepreneur and going through the rounds of funding and the rounds of no's that it takes to get the rounds of funding, there's a great book by, I think it's Meg Hirschberg. You can check it out. It's something like For Better or Work. And it's actually for the families of entrepreneurs. I highly recommend it. I think her husband was the founder of Stonyfield Farms. So really well respected brand. I highly recommend you read it. You can get it on Nook. The other thing is, as the spouse of an entrepreneur, a lot of times there are your own fears that come up about, like, are they going to fail? How are we going to make the rent? Is the mortgage going to get, like, all those things? And one of the biggest services you could probably do for them while they're capital raising is get yourself in a prosperity, abundance-minded consciousness, and just stop. If there's those kind of conversations about, like, and that energy going on, it's very unnerving for the entrepreneur who already has their own, and now you're compounding it. So manage your own state. So you're at your best. I'd highly recommend at that point reading Think and Grow Rich, Wallace Wattles, whatever you need to do to keep yourself thinking universal abundance, and that there's more than enough money on the planet, and it's always able to be found. And like Mother Teresa said, the money for the project is going to come from wherever the money is. That was, somebody asked her, she was going to open an orphanage, and they said, well, where is all this money going to come from? And she just looked at them and she said, the money's going to come from wherever the money is. Right? So if you can stand in that for your wife, it will calm her and have her be more present and more confident and powerful in her conversations with the investors. Okay? Create a safe harbor for your mate, whoever and however you define that. In the back?
Yeah, so what makes an effective pitch? Like, if I have a technology company that's somewhat complex, how do I make it into, normal terms or something?
One thing in Maverick Angels, we created a boot camp that I made, pardon my being so forceful, I made the entrepreneurs go through. And they, some of the more senior ones were like, oh, I don't want to spend 8 hours doing this. And I'm like, you know what? Just go through it. And every single one, not one complaint out of hundreds of entrepreneurs who went through my boot camp. In fact, that's when it took off and other countries found out about it, and then we got invited to speak. It's like, hey, we want to know what you teach. Okay, so I call it the 10 pitch, the 10 slides an investor must see on a pitch deck. And anyone give me your business card, I will send you my template. It was based on a company, a very successful company, which was funded and acquired, a coffee company, a low-acid coffee company. And what's interesting about it was I just changed the names and the product name, and I kept everything else because it was the perfect pitch deck. It actually is a template you can use for your own product or service and mirror it. It's still today as relevant as it was. There are a few things that need a little tweaking, which I will make a notation to you, such as valuation. So anyone at the end of this, please come to me and I will email to you. This has been taught around the world. This has been a very effective tool for entrepreneurs to learn, like, how the heck do I put a compelling pitch deck together? And I think it'll really benefit you. And this will cross over from technology into products, services, impact investing, anything. So I'll send it to you.
The other thing about a compelling pitch is put it in terms people can understand. Instead of just babbling technology at somebody, well, this reduces consumption by 30%, and give me a picture. If I'm a visual, it'll do better for you to say, well, that allows this car, instead of just going from here to downtown LA, you can go from here to Long Beach. Give pictures, simple.
Just one quick thing. What makes you different from your competition? And never say you don't have competition, because literally investors will turn off. You have indirect competition. So whether you really have to do your research, because investors, if you haven't pitched in front of investors yet, they have their tablets in front of them and they are Googling every single fact that you are saying. In fact, in one of my meetings, someone said that he didn't have a competitor in this particular space. One of my great investors actually went to the tablet, like, what about these people? They're number one, and killed it. It was silence in the meeting because he didn't do his homework. So yes, a lot of these things I'm kind of glossing over, but you will see pictures, you will see the certain facts that you need. Don't make it too wordy, make it really easy to read. Most investors are in middle age and older, so don't make small itty bitty bitty print. There's all these things you'll notice, and I could easily walk you through that as well, but we only have so much time tonight that we can't get it all. However, the kernel of information is why you. And that is what a very seasoned investor will ask. Why you? Not your competitor. And you have to come up with a very compelling answer. And part of that is your team. Do not pick just your best friends. Pick the best person for the job. Always. I've seen too many times where it's destroyed companies because the team dynamics didn't work out. And we saw it coming. Okay.
Thank you. Desiree, you've got something
No,
to
it's
add?
fine. We have short time.
Well, we have time to
So we've got time for one last question with a microphone, and then we're gonna hang out anyway.
If you want to.
So, if you want, we just might have to circle in closer. Okay. Does anybody have one last mic question? Yeah.
All right, so first I want to start up that innovates in a special type of optics that allows solar cells to be 5% more efficient.
Nice.
So getting back to what you said about listening, because I have a business model where I want to license
Yes.
technology
Okay.
and make revenue that way. But I've heard feedback to where the licensing model is probably not the best route to take. So going back to the pitches now that you suggest, do you recommend having like two separate pitch decks, one for like a licensing model and one for basically like a Harvard, where you would basically build a product and sell it to appeal to whichever preference the investor?
In that case, I would say, pardon me. in that case, I would say only have one pitch deck. And you can include the revenue models. We want to see at least 5 revenue models. This is from the pitch deck. 5 revenue models. Write that down or memorize that. 5 revenue models. So you can list licensing as one of them because you can't rely on just one. I like 5. I mean, 3 meaty ones and then 2 that you can also really, take off. So now, when it comes to a pitch deck, it depends on who you're presenting to. If you're presenting to angel investors in Los Angeles, the vibe is going to be different for your pitch deck than it would if you're presenting to a VC in the Bay Area. So cater to your audience and make sure that it is tailored to that audience. Know your audience. Do your homework. Who is in the room? Find out who these people are and what they like to invest in. Make sure it's not a waste of your time. Certain angel groups love technology. Tech Coast Angel's one of them. They have recently diversified into other areas because they see it's very lucrative. Like what Maverick did, I'm like, hey, all in. Whoever wants it, there are only certain 3 industries, which I won't mention. You can just guess what they are. They're not necessarily clean. I don't mean clean meaning green, if you know what I'm saying. Those were no-nos for me. And they made a lot of money, but that doesn't matter because I don't believe in them. So find out what their sweet spots are.